What if someone told you that over 2,500 years ago, a Chinese military strategist wrote down principles that could help you win in business, relationships, and life itself? Sun Tzu's The Art of War isn't just about ancient battles. It's a blueprint for domination in the modern world. Today, we're going to explore 21 rules that billionaires, CEOs, and the world's most successful people use to stay ahead of everyone else. These aren't just theories. These are battle-tested strategies that have shaped empires, built fortunes, and continue to influence the decisions of the most powerful people on Earth. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how to apply these principles to transform your own life. Rule 1. Know yourself and know your enemy. Sun Tzu said, "If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles." This isn't about making enemies everywhere you go. It's about understanding your competition and your own capabilities. Look at how Elon Musk approached the electric vehicle market. When Tesla was just starting out, Musk didn't just dream about making electric cars. He studied every major automaker, understood their weaknesses, their reluctance to innovate, and their dependence on traditional manufacturing. At the same time, he was brutally honest about Tesla's limitations, lack of manufacturing experience, limited capital, and the challenge of building a charging network from scratch. But here's where the genius comes in. Musk knew that traditional automakers were slow to adapt because they had massive investments in combustion engine technology. They couldn't pivot quickly without cannibalizing their existing business. Tesla, having nothing to lose, could move fast and take risks that established companies couldn't. In your own life, this means conducting honest assessments. If you're competing for a promotion, study your colleagues. What are their strengths? What are their blind spots? More importantly, what are yours? Maybe you're not the most experienced, but you're the most adaptable. Maybe you don't have the biggest network, but you have the most innovative ideas. Warren Buffett applies this principle religiously. Before making any investment, he spends months understanding the company, its competitors, and the entire industry landscape. He once said he only invests in businesses he can understand completely, because you can't know your enemy if you don't understand the battlefield. Rule 2. Win without fighting. The supreme excellence, according to Sun Tzu, is to subdue the enemy without fighting. This principle has created more billionaires than any other strategy in the book. Jeff Bezos mastered this when he built Amazon. Instead of fighting traditional retailers head-on, he created an entirely new battlefield, e-commerce. While established retailers were focused on competing with each other for physical store locations, Bezos was building a platform that would make physical stores less relevant. But here's the deeper lesson. Bezos didn't just avoid fighting. He made the fight irrelevant. By the time traditional retailers realized what was happening, Amazon had already won. They had the infrastructure, the customer base, and the logistics network that would take competitors decades to replicate. Reed Hastings did something similar with Netflix. Instead of trying to compete with Blockbuster on their terms, more stores, better locations, lower late fees, he created a subscription model that eliminated late fees entirely. When Blockbuster finally tried to compete, Netflix had already moved to streaming, making physical media distribution obsolete. For you, this means looking for ways to make your competition irrelevant rather than trying to beat them at their own game. If you're a freelancer competing on price, create a service so unique that price becomes secondary. If you're in sales, instead of competing on features, create relationships so strong that your competitors can't break in. The most successful people don't win because they're better at playing the game. They win because they change the rules of the game itself. Rule 3. Speed is everything. Sun Tzu emphasized that rapidity is the essence of war. In today's world, this translates to moving faster than your competition, making decisions quicker, and adapting to change more rapidly than anyone else. Mark Zuckerberg understood this when Facebook was growing. When competitors like MySpace were taking months to implement new features, Facebook was pushing updates weekly. When mobile became important, Facebook didn't just create a mobile app. They redesigned their entire platform around mobile-first thinking. But speed isn't just about technology. It's about decision-making. While other companies were forming committees and conducting endless meetings, Zuckerberg was making decisions and adjusting based on results. This speed advantage allowed Facebook to capture and maintain market dominance even when competitors had more resources. Jack Ma applied this principle when building Alibaba. While established companies were analyzing the Chinese e-commerce market, Ma was building it. He didn't wait for perfect conditions or complete information. He moved fast, learned from mistakes, and adapted quickly. The lesson here is that in most situations, the cost of delay is higher than the cost of imperfection. Most people wait for perfect information before making decisions. Successful people gather enough information to make informed decisions, then act quickly and adjust as they learn more. This applies to your career, your relationships, and your personal growth. If you see an opportunity, move on it quickly. If you need to have a difficult conversation, have it now rather than letting it fester. If you want to start a business, start it now and improve it as you go. Rule 4. Use information as your weapon. Sun Tzu dedicated significant attention to the importance of intelligence and information. He believed that all warfare is based on deception, but more importantly, it's based on knowing what others don't know. Michael Bloomberg built a media empire on this principle. He didn't just report financial news. He created systems that gave traders and investors access to real-time information faster than anyone else. The Bloomberg terminal became indispensable because it provided information advantage, and people were willing to pay premium prices for that advantage. But here's what most people miss about information warfare. It's not just about gathering information, it's about controlling information flow. Steve Jobs was a master of this. He controlled not just what information Apple released, but when and how it was released. This created anticipation, controlled narrative, and gave Apple massive advantages in the market. Ray Dalio, founder of Bridgewater Associates, built one of the world's most successful hedge funds by creating systems that gather and analyze information more effectively than competitors. He didn't just collect data. He created algorithms that could process information and identify patterns that human analysts might miss. For you, this means becoming obsessed with information that matters to your goals. If you're in sales, you need to know more about your prospects than they know about themselves. If you're climbing the corporate ladder, you need to understand office politics, company direction, and industry trends better than your colleagues. But remember, information without action is worthless. The goal isn't to become a walking encyclopedia. It's to use information to make better decisions and take more effective action than your competition. Rule 5. Choose your battles wisely. Not every battle is worth fighting. Sun Tzu taught that the wise general picks battles he can win and avoids battles that drain resources without strategic benefit. Bill Gates demonstrated this principle throughout his career. When Microsoft was growing, Gates didn't try to compete in every technology market. He focused on operating systems and productivity software, areas where Microsoft could build sustainable competitive advantages. When Google emerged as a search leader, Gates didn't immediately try to beat them at search. Instead, he focused on areas where Microsoft was stronger. Warren Buffett is famous for this approach. He has a concept called his circle of competence, areas where he has deep knowledge and competitive advantage. He doesn't invest outside this circle, no matter how attractive an opportunity might seem. This discipline has helped him avoid costly mistakes that have destroyed other investors. In your personal life, this means being selective about where you invest your time and energy. Every argument you engage in, every project you take on, every relationship you pursue, these are all battles. The question isn't whether you can win them, but whether winning them moves you closer to your larger objectives. Consider someone like Oprah Winfrey. Throughout her career, she's been selective about the battles she fights. She could have engaged in celebrity feuds, controversial political debates, or media drama. Instead, she focused on building her brand, helping others, and creating content that aligned with her values. This selectivity allowed her to build influence and wealth that spans decades. The key is to identify battles that, if won, create lasting advantages. Avoid battles that, even if won, don't significantly improve your position. And never fight battles that, regardless of outcome, damage your reputation or drain your resources. Rule 6. Appear weak when you are strong. This might be the most counterintuitive principle in Sun Tzu's philosophy, but it's incredibly powerful in modern applications. The idea is to never show your full strength until the moment you need to use it. Look at how Amazon operated for years. While traditional retailers dismissed them as just an online bookstore, Jeff Bezos was quietly building logistics infrastructure, developing cloud computing capabilities, and creating artificial intelligence systems. By the time competitors realized Amazon's true capabilities, it was too late to catch up. Warren Buffett practices this constantly. He downplays his intelligence and presents himself as a simple, folksy investor from Nebraska. This causes people to underestimate him in negotiations, share information they shouldn't, and make deals they later regret. Meanwhile, Buffett is running one of the most sophisticated investment operations in the world. In your career, this might mean not revealing all your skills and capabilities immediately. Let people underestimate you, then exceed their expectations consistently. This builds your reputation as someone who delivers beyond expectations, which is far more valuable than being seen as someone who talks a big game. The principle also applies to negotiations. If you're buying a house, don't immediately reveal your maximum budget. If you're negotiating a salary, don't start with your highest acceptable offer. Keep your strongest positions in reserve until you need them. But there's a deeper psychological element here. When people underestimate you, they become overconfident. Overconfidence leads to mistakes. Those mistakes become your opportunities. Rule 7. Use your environment. Sun Tzu taught that successful generals use terrain to their advantage. In modern life, this means understanding and leveraging your environment, whether that's your industry, your city, your network, or your circumstances. Mark Cuban understood this when he sold his first company, MicroSolutions, in 1990. He could have started another technology company, but he recognized that his environment, Dallas, Texas in the 1990s, was better suited for other opportunities. He bought the Dallas Mavericks, understanding that sports ownership would give him visibility, networking opportunities, and a platform that technology consulting never could. Reed Hastings used his environment brilliantly with Netflix. He recognized that the combination of improving internet infrastructure, changing consumer behavior, and the rise of smart devices created a perfect environment for streaming services. He didn't wait for the environment to be perfect. He positioned Netflix to take advantage of environmental changes as they happened. For you, this means constantly analyzing your environment and looking for ways to use it to your advantage. If you're in a small town, that might mean less competition and more opportunities to stand out. If you're in a big city, that might mean more networking opportunities and access to resources. Your environment also includes the people around you. Successful people are master networkers not because they're naturally social, but because they understand that other people are part of their environment. They cultivate relationships that provide information, opportunities, and support. The key is to stop fighting your environment and start working with it. Instead of complaining about limitations, look for advantages that others might not see. Rule 8. Timing is everything. Sun Tzu wrote, "He who is prudent and lies in wait for an enemy who is not will be victorious." This is about patience and timing. Knowing when to act is often more important than knowing how to act. Steve Jobs demonstrated this principle throughout his career. When he returned to Apple in 1997, he didn't immediately launch the iPhone. He waited until the technology was ready, the market was prepared, and Apple had the resources to execute properly. The result was a product that transformed not just Apple, but the entire technology industry. Similarly, when Mark Zuckerberg had opportunities to sell Facebook early on, he waited. He understood that social media was in its infancy and that Facebook's value would increase dramatically as the market matured. That patience turned a $1 million opportunity into a multi-billion-dollar empire. In your career, this might mean waiting for the right opportunity rather than jumping at the first offer. It might mean spending extra time building skills before making a major move. It might mean waiting for market conditions to improve before launching a business. But timing isn't just about patience, it's about recognizing when conditions are right for action. When opportunities present themselves, you need to act quickly and decisively. The skill is in recognizing the difference between opportunities that require patience and opportunities that require immediate action. Ray Dalio built Bridgewater Associates by understanding economic cycles and timing his investments accordingly. He didn't try to predict exactly when markets would turn, but he positioned his investments to benefit from inevitable economic changes. The lesson is that time is your most valuable resource. Don't waste it on activities that don't align with your goals, but don't hesitate to invest it heavily when the right opportunities arise. Rule 9. Unity of command. Sun Tzu emphasized that successful armies have clear leadership and unified command. In modern life, this translates to having clarity about who makes decisions and ensuring that everyone understands their role. Tim Cook has masterfully applied this principle at Apple. After Steve Jobs' death, there were questions about whether Apple could maintain its culture and innovation without its founder. Cook established clear leadership structures, maintained Apple's core values, and ensured that everyone in the organization understood their role in the company's mission. Jeff Bezos built Amazon with this principle from the beginning. He established clear decision-making processes, defined roles and responsibilities, and created systems that ensured accountability throughout the organization. Even as Amazon grew from a small startup to a global empire, the clarity of command remained constant. In your personal life, this means being clear about your own decision-making processes. Many people struggle because they don't have clear criteria for making decisions. They change their minds frequently, second-guess themselves, and send mixed messages to people around them. Successful people establish clear principles and stick to them. They make decisions based on consistent criteria, communicate their decisions clearly, and take responsibility for outcomes. This creates trust and confidence among the people who work with them. The principle also applies to teams you lead or participate in. Whether it's a work project, a family decision, or a social group, someone needs to be clearly responsible for final decisions. Ambiguity about leadership creates conflict, delays decisions, and reduces effectiveness. Rule 10. Flexibility in tactics. While Sun Tzu emphasized the importance of consistent strategy, he also stressed the need for tactical flexibility. The ability to adapt your methods while maintaining your objectives is crucial for long-term success. Reed Hastings demonstrated this with Netflix's evolution. The company's strategy remained constant, to be the leading platform for home entertainment. But the tactics evolved from DVD by mail to streaming to original content production. Each tactical shift was a response to changing market conditions, but the strategic objective never changed. Elon Musk shows similar flexibility with Tesla. The strategy has always been to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. But the tactics have evolved from high-end sports cars to mass-market vehicles to solar panels to energy storage. Each tactical adjustment was designed to advance the larger strategic objective. For you, this means being willing to adjust your methods while staying committed to your goals. If you want to build wealth, there are many different tactics you could use: real estate, stocks, business ownership, or professional advancement. The key is to remain flexible about methods while staying committed to the objective. This principle also applies to problem solving. When one approach isn't working, successful people quickly try different approaches rather than stubbornly sticking to failing methods. They're emotionally attached to their goals, not to their methods. The ability to adapt tactics while maintaining strategic focus is what separates successful people from those who either give up too easily or persist with ineffective methods for too long. Rule 11. Deception and misdirection. Sun Tzu wrote, "All warfare is based on deception." In modern terms, this doesn't mean lying or unethical behavior. It means controlling information and managing perceptions to your advantage. Steve Jobs was a master of this principle. Apple's product launches were carefully orchestrated to create maximum impact. Jobs would downplay certain features while emphasizing others, creating surprise and excitement when the full capabilities were revealed. This wasn't dishonesty, it was strategic communication. Warren Buffett uses misdirection in his investment approach. He often discusses his failures and limitations publicly, which causes people to underestimate his sophistication. Meanwhile, he's using advanced analytical methods and making highly complex investment decisions. This misdirection helps him in negotiations and investment opportunities. In your career, this might mean not revealing all your plans and capabilities immediately. Let your work speak for itself rather than talking about what you're going to do. This prevents competitors from copying your strategies and creates more impact when you deliver results. The principle also applies to negotiations. Don't reveal your full position immediately. Allow the other party to make assumptions about your constraints and priorities. This gives you more flexibility and often leads to better outcomes. But remember, this principle is about managing information and perceptions, not about being dishonest. The goal is to maintain strategic advantage, not to deceive people about facts or make false promises. Rule 12. Know when to advance and when to retreat. One of Sun Tzu's most important lessons is knowing when to push forward and when to pull back. This isn't about giving up. It's about strategic resource allocation and avoiding Pyrrhic victories. Bill Gates demonstrated this principle when he stepped back from day-to-day operations at Microsoft to focus on philanthropy. He recognized that his skills and interests were better suited to solving global problems than to managing a mature technology company. This wasn't retreat, it was strategic repositioning. Similarly, when Warren Buffett recognizes that he's made a mistake with an investment, he sells quickly rather than holding on hoping for recovery. He understands that capital tied up in declining investments can't be used for better opportunities. In your career, this might mean recognizing when a job, relationship, or project isn't working and making strategic changes rather than persisting out of stubbornness. It might mean stepping back from opportunities that seem attractive but don't align with your long-term objectives. The key is to distinguish between temporary setbacks that require persistence and fundamental problems that require strategic changes. Successful people are persistent about their goals, but flexible about their methods. This principle also applies to market timing. Sometimes the best action is to wait for better conditions rather than forcing action in unfavorable circumstances. Sometimes the best investment is to preserve capital rather than deploy it in uncertain conditions. Rule 13. Use spies and intelligence networks. Sun Tzu devoted an entire chapter to the importance of intelligence gathering. In modern life, this translates to building networks of people who can provide information, insights, and opportunities. Reid Hoffman, founder of LinkedIn, built his entire career on this principle. He understood that professional networks are intelligence networks. By connecting people and facilitating information sharing, he created value for others while building his own access to information and opportunities. Mark Benioff, CEO of Salesforce, uses this principle by maintaining relationships with customers, partners, and industry leaders. These relationships provide him with insights into market trends, competitive intelligence, and new opportunities before they become public knowledge. For you, this means building relationships with people who can provide information relevant to your goals. If you're in sales, you need relationships with people who can tell you about upcoming opportunities. If you're investing, you need relationships with people who understand market trends and specific industries. But remember, intelligence networks are built on reciprocity. You need to provide value to others before you can expect to receive value from them. The most successful people are generous with their time, knowledge, and connections. The principle also applies to formal research and information gathering. Successful people are constantly learning about their industry, their competition, and emerging trends. They read extensively, attend conferences, and seek out expert opinions. Rule 14. Psychological warfare. Sun Tzu understood that victory often depends more on psychological factors than on resources or capabilities. The ability to influence how others think and feel can be more powerful than any other advantage. Steve Jobs used psychological principles throughout his career. He created a reality distortion field that made people believe they could achieve impossible things. This wasn't manipulation, it was inspiring people to perform beyond their normal capabilities. Elon Musk uses similar principles. His ambitious goals for Tesla, SpaceX, and other companies create psychological pressure that drives innovation and performance. By publicly committing to seemingly impossible timelines, he creates urgency and focus that wouldn't exist otherwise. In your career, this might mean understanding the psychological motivations of people you work with. What drives your boss? What concerns your clients? What motivates your team members? Understanding these psychological factors allows you to communicate more effectively and influence outcomes. The principle also applies to self-psychology. Successful people understand their own psychological patterns and create systems that support their goals. They might use public commitments to create accountability, or they might structure their environment to support positive behaviors. But remember, psychological influence should be used ethically. The goal is to create win-win situations where psychological influence helps everyone achieve better outcomes. Rule 15. Concentrate your forces. Sun Tzu taught that you should concentrate your forces at the point where you can achieve decisive victory. In modern life, this means focusing your resources on opportunities where you can create the biggest impact. Warren Buffett applies this principle through concentrated investing. Rather than diversifying across hundreds of investments, he focuses on a small number of companies where he has deep understanding and high confidence. This concentration allows him to deploy significant resources where he believes he can achieve superior returns. Jeff Bezos concentrated Amazon's resources on customer service and logistics infrastructure. Rather than trying to be good at everything, he focused on the areas that would create the most sustainable competitive advantage. This concentration allowed Amazon to dominate e-commerce and cloud computing. For you, this means identifying the activities that create the most value toward your goals and concentrating your time and energy on those activities. If you're building a business, focus on the activities that generate revenue and create customer value. If you're building a career, focus on developing skills and relationships that create the most opportunities. The principle also applies to decision-making. Rather than trying to optimize every decision, focus on getting the most important decisions right. Small decisions should be made quickly to preserve time and energy for important decisions. Many people fail because they spread their resources too thin. They try to do too many things at once and end up being mediocre at everything rather than excellent at the things that matter most. Rule 16. Avoid strength, attack weakness. Sun Tzu advised attacking where the enemy is weak rather than where they are strong. This principle has created more business success than almost any other strategic concept. Netflix didn't try to beat Blockbuster by opening more stores or having better locations. They attacked Blockbuster's weakness, the inconvenience of returning movies, by creating a mail-order service that eliminated trips to the store. Tesla didn't try to beat traditional automakers by building better internal combustion engines. They attacked the weakness of traditional automakers, their reluctance to invest in electric technology, by building pure electric vehicles. In your career, this means identifying weaknesses in your competition and positioning yourself to exploit those weaknesses. If your colleagues are poor communicators, become an exceptional communicator. If your competitors are slow to adopt new technology, become the expert in emerging technologies. The principle also applies to personal development. Rather than trying to fix all your weaknesses, focus on developing your strengths and finding ways to minimize the impact of your weaknesses. If you're not naturally detail-oriented, create systems that help you manage details rather than trying to become a different person. Look for opportunities where your strengths naturally exploit market weaknesses. This creates sustainable competitive advantages that are difficult for others to replicate. Rule 17. Create alliances. Sun Tzu emphasized the importance of alliances in achieving victory. In modern life, this translates to building partnerships and relationships that create mutual benefits. Mark Zuckerberg built Facebook's dominance partly through strategic partnerships. Rather than trying to compete with every company, he created alliances that expanded Facebook's reach and capabilities. The integration with Instagram, WhatsApp, and other platforms created an ecosystem that competitors couldn't easily replicate. Tim Cook has maintained Apple's success through strategic supplier relationships and partnerships. Rather than trying to manufacture everything internally, Apple creates alliances with companies that provide specialized capabilities while maintaining control over design and customer experience. For you, this means looking for opportunities to create partnerships that benefit everyone involved. If you're in business, look for complementary businesses that serve similar customers. If you're in your career, look for colleagues whose skills complement yours. The key to successful alliances is ensuring that all parties benefit. The most sustainable partnerships are those where everyone has incentives to maintain and strengthen the relationship. This principle also applies to personal relationships. Successful people understand that their personal and professional relationships are interconnected. They invest time and energy in building relationships that provide mutual support and benefit. Rule 18. Adapt to circumstances. Sun Tzu taught that water takes the shape of its container and flows around obstacles. Similarly, successful people adapt their approach based on changing circumstances rather than rigidly sticking to predetermined plans. Reed Hastings demonstrated this principle when Netflix faced competition from Amazon Prime and other streaming services. Rather than trying to compete solely on content library, Netflix adapted by investing heavily in original content creation. This adaptation transformed Netflix from a content distributor to a content creator. Elon Musk shows similar adaptability. When Tesla faced production challenges, he adapted by personally working on the factory floor to understand and solve problems. When SpaceX faced funding challenges, he adapted by taking on NASA contracts that provided revenue while advancing the company's technology. For you, this means being willing to adjust your approach when circumstances change. If your industry is being disrupted by technology, adapt by developing relevant skills. If your career path is blocked, adapt by finding alternative routes to your objectives. The key is to remain flexible about methods while staying committed to objectives. Don't confuse changing tactics with giving up on goals. This principle also applies to learning and development. Successful people continuously adapt their skills and knowledge based on changing requirements. They don't assume that what worked in the past will continue to work in the future. Rule 19. Use momentum. Sun Tzu understood that momentum is a force multiplier. When you have momentum, everything becomes easier. When you lose momentum, everything becomes harder. Jeff Bezos used momentum brilliantly in building Amazon. Once Amazon established dominance in online book sales, Bezos used that momentum to expand into other product categories. Each success created momentum that made the next expansion easier. Steve Jobs used momentum when he returned to Apple. The success of the iMac created momentum that made the iPod possible. The success of the iPod created momentum that made the iPhone possible. Each success built on previous successes. In your career, this means recognizing when you have momentum and using it to achieve bigger goals. If you've just completed a successful project, use that momentum to take on more challenging assignments. If you've just built a strong relationship, use that momentum to expand your network. The principle also applies to personal habits and development. Small successes create momentum that makes bigger successes possible. If you want to get in shape, start with small, achievable goals that create momentum toward bigger changes. But remember, momentum can work against you as well. Negative momentum can create downward spirals that are difficult to escape. The key is to create positive momentum through small wins and to interrupt negative momentum before it builds. Rule 20. Preserve resources. Sun Tzu taught that the best victories are achieved with minimal resource expenditure. This principle is crucial for long-term success because resources are always limited. Warren Buffett has built his fortune by preserving capital and avoiding unnecessary risks. He doesn't try to maximize returns on every investment. He focuses on preserving capital while achieving consistent returns over time. This approach has allowed him to compound wealth over decades. Jeff Bezos applied this principle by focusing on cash flow and operational efficiency rather than short-term profits. By preserving resources and reinvesting them in growth, Amazon was able to outlast competitors who focused on immediate profitability. For you, this means being strategic about how you spend your time, energy, and money. Every resource you waste on unimportant activities is a resource that's not available for important opportunities. The principle also applies to emotional and psychological resources. Successful people don't waste emotional energy on things they can't control. They preserve their mental resources for decisions and actions that can create positive outcomes. This doesn't mean being cheap or risk-averse. It means being strategic about resource allocation and ensuring that every expenditure of resources moves you closer to your objectives. Rule 21. Victory through superior strategy. Sun Tzu's ultimate lesson is that victory comes from superior strategy, not from superior resources or capabilities. The side with the better strategy wins, regardless of other advantages. Bill Gates didn't build Microsoft by having better technology than competitors. He built Microsoft by having a better strategy, focusing on software rather than hardware, creating industry standards, and building ecosystems that made competition difficult. Warren Buffett doesn't beat the market by having access to better information or superior analytical tools. He beats the market by having a better investment strategy, focusing on businesses he understands, buying at reasonable prices, and holding for long periods. For you, this means that your success depends more on your strategy than on your starting advantages. You don't need to be the smartest, most connected, or best-funded person to succeed. You need to be the person with the best strategy. A good strategy considers your strengths and weaknesses, the competitive landscape, available resources, and long-term objectives. It provides a framework for making decisions and taking actions that create cumulative advantages over time. The most successful people are not necessarily the most talented. They're the ones who develop and execute the best strategies for their situations. If you're still here, that means you're serious about changing your life. Comment strategist below and let me know that you're ready to apply these principles to transform your own situation. These aren't just ancient concepts. They're practical tools that can help you achieve your goals faster and more effectively than you ever thought possible. Remember, knowledge without application is worthless. The difference between successful people and everyone else isn't what they know. It's what they do with what they know. Choose 3 of these principles that resonate most with your current situation. Start applying them today. Small changes in strategy can create massive changes in results. Your competitors are not applying these principles. Most people are reacting to circumstances rather than creating them. Most people are playing defense rather than offense. Most people are following conventional wisdom rather than thinking strategically. This is your opportunity to gain an unfair advantage. Use these principles, apply them consistently, and watch how quickly your results begin to change. The strategies that built empires can build your success too, if you're willing to apply them. The choice is yours. You can continue doing what everyone else is doing and get the same results everyone else gets. Or you can start thinking like Sun Tzu and begin creating the life you actually want. What's it going to be?